to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a Baller.
Welcome in. It's the final episode of 2025 here on the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. And once again, it's just Borg and Betz.
Kyle, come on, dude. Last week I was upset with you because your intro was weak for Christmas. There was no holiday theme. There was no cheer. People just won Dynasty titles. And you're like, welcome into another show. Kyle, bring the energy, dude. It's the last one of the year. People are coming off a high, or hopefully not, a low of a loss.
But
coming off a high of a Dynasty championship. I mean, come on, dude. There's nothing like redraft. Like, with your high school friends or whatever, like your work crew, there's nothing like a good redraft title. But a Dynasty championship where you have to put the work in for years, scouting, rookie picks, trades, getting, Tyreek or Puka off the waiver wire. Like, come on, man. This is different. So step your game up. I know you're mailing it in for the end of the year. You're trying to just get by. I get it, Kyle, but come on, dude. These people need the energy.
I don't know what it feels like right now to have a Dynasty title. Years ago, I did.
Loser.
Because Al and I were facing Mike in the finals of the Ballers Main Dynasty League. And once we got Derrick Henry, and we, of course, Josh Jacobs, we kind of knew it was over on Saturday. It was over. Completely
ironically,
obliterated.
In a league that I play in as well, it was the exact same situation against Henry with Jacobs. And honestly, I don't even think I logged back in to Sleeper for the rest of the weekend. It was just, you knew it was going to happen. So, yeah, tough one there.
Yeah, I am. We're recording this a little after that, but I am riding high from Mike and I's title in the main league, which is the league of all leagues. It's how the podcast. Yes, the league of record. It's how the podcast was started, and we went from worst to first, and that's a good feeling, man.
I mean, every year, what's your stat? Every year in the real life NFL, there's a team that goes from last in their division to winning the division.
Yes, every year there's at least, this year there's going to be 3 teams in the top 10. So they're picking in the top 10 of the draft. The next year they either end up winning the division or having 12 wins. So it's pretty wild. We'll actually probably look at that statistic as we finalize the NFL draft order and talk about some of those teams, like which teams could actually flip the script. You want to say the Giants?
Do you have a hot take?
I need to look at oldtankathon.com.
Way too early. Hot take here. I mean, it's the Raiders, it's the Giants, the Jets, the Titans, Cardinals, Browns.
There's a couple of cheat code teams in the top 10 currently.
I mean, you could say the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think the Giants could be a sneaky team. I think the Saints could win the division. I think those are the easier ones to go to. But once we get through more of the offseason discussion, things change in the NFL. I think people don't realize that, not only do quarterbacks turn over way faster, but teams in the top 10 can quickly move their way, i.e. the Patriots this year going to, looking like a number 1 seed. So, yeah, a lot changes. On this episode, what we're going to do, Betz, just to set the table, this is the last piece of information that people get for 2025. They're trying to just squeeze in as much information as possible because once they turn to 2026, they're not going to know anything. So it's an important episode. To prepare the people, we're going to give you a preview of the 2026 offseason and talk about a lot of players that are kind of either free agents, that's one category, they are in a committee, so a lot of running backs, and then a lot of fringe players that people are trying to figure out, do I keep this player? Do I hold on to them? Do I stash them? Or do I trash them, Betz? And honestly, pretty much anybody you can keep on your team. I don't care. You could convince me of anybody.
You could also get rid of anybody on your team for the right price.
That is true.
That's the beauty of Dynasty.
Think about the conversation we would have had a year ago. And we would have said, hey, by the way, there's going to be a guy named Phillip Rivers that is going to be starting game. Malik Willis is going to be the QB3. You need to stash Malik Willis. He's going to be what you need in the final weeks. Jake Tonjes McBasketball, 49ers tight end. Now that's a stash that you need to hold on to. So Dynasty is a fun game where we get to talk about a lot of fringe players. So we'll talk about that on your roster. But I did want to update people because as the calendar turns for our podcast, we keep going. And really, it's the meat of our season. So we will do a rookie review in January of all the positions. So if we don't talk about certain players, like, I don't know, Matthew Golden today, what should you do with him? Yes, you should hold on to him. But like, we will review all of the rookies, what they did, give some context for them over the next couple weeks, and then we will start to turn our attention in late January to the 2026 class. We'll do all of our film reviews, our production profile reviews, everything else. So it is Dynasty season.
Yeah, for sure, man. The show in season is always really fun because it's a little different than what the guys do on the main show and what we do on DFS. It's obviously its own thing, but like, really, you listen to the show for the offseason. Like, this is what the show is made for the rookie content, free agency, all that sort of stuff, the NFL draft. So I'm excited, man. Yeah, it's super fun in season for us because the calendar and the weekly schedule kind of writes itself, right? We react to the games, we kind of preview what's ahead. You do it for 18 weeks in a row, and then you get to the playoffs. But in the offseason, like, I love the show for that because we get to just take a step back and kind of digest what just happened with the rookies, second-year breakouts, trade targets, all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, the rookie class, that's the best part of Dynasty, right? Is just trying to call your shot on guys and figure out who's going to be the next, big running back in the class or wide receiver or whatever it is. So I always love that time of year. So yeah, January, March, April, kind of that 3 or 4 month stretch is my favorite time of Dynasty.
You get to be so much more creative. So Betz and I, we've done this as a profession for a long time. And I love the offseason. Some people are like, man, what do you guys do? Like, I get questions from my friends or other people like, what do you do in the offseason? It's like, for me, we get to be so much more creative of the conversation around the NFL and around these players than just, here's the script of what just happened. Let's react to it every single week for 18 plus weeks. We get to be super, super creative. So we have some fun stuff coming up, fun shows, even adding some stuff to our YouTube channel. I've talked to Andy about of just making sure that people who are a part of the Dynasty podcast feel like they are part of the collective group. We have our Dynasty Discord channels that are just nonstop. And I just want to give this a little plug here. If you have any suggestions, this is a free plug right here. Any suggestions of saying, hey, in the off season, I really wish you guys would cover this type of content. Feel free to message me. Feel free to DM me. Feel free to DM Papa Josh, our customer support. Like, we want to make sure that we cover things on the show that really matter for your teams. Now, in your very specific 32-man, 2-punter league, I might not be able to help you. That might not be a question that gets on the show. Like, some people ask me, like, hey, I'm in a 3 tight end premium and we start 2 kickers. Like, what should I do? I'm like, dude, no idea.
Number 1, go outside. Number 2, get a new league.
I'm still waiting to do a routes run league. Nobody wants to join me.
Who would be like the top tier in that league?
Well, it used to be back in the day Alec Pierce, but he's leveled up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, credit to Alec Pierce. We're actually going to talk about him a little bit today. He earned himself some money this season, but yeah, he was the guy that's like, he's out there, he's running around, he's not really doing anything. You know who it actually might be? Jahan Dotson.
Okay.
For the Eagles. He's on the field a bunch. He gets like 1 target a game.
Trey Tucker would be elite.
Oh, he had a nice game this past weekend for the tanking Raiders.
That would be a really fun, like, who can have the most amount of routes with the least production or targeted, like an MVS years ago. It's like, right. You're on the field, you're running the routes. Jefferson. Yeah, you're doing the cardio. So a Cardio Kings league, if you're interested in joining me this next year, I mean, what a league to start.
You're sick. You're sick.
All right, let's rewind.
Weekly Rewind.
Speaking of the offseason, Betz and I will probably start putting together these threads because what we end up doing is reviewing the film of almost every single player, and so we'll start putting out those, here's every single touch from Chase Brown this past year, which that's the film I looked at this week. But like, those are the type of things where when you start to see players over the course of the season, not just like, here's the highlights from 1 week, you kind of get to see their usage, see the highs and lows, see where they don't win. A lot of wide receivers, like, okay, you're not winning down the field. You're not winning, against zone. So we will start to put those threads together. If you have any players that you're interested in, feel free to let us know. We'll put together some threads of those. Chase Brown, man, through the first 4 to 5 weeks, would you say, like, in redraft, he was one of the biggest busts?
He's up there for sure. And I feel like in Dynasty, it was like, because if you recall the conversation last offseason, it was like, okay, the end of the stretch run from 2024 was awesome. But like, do they really have that much investment in him? Like, how talented is he actually? Like, could this team move on and and draft somebody. So there was the whole offseason of like, you feel like you had to call your shot. And honestly, in the first like 6 weeks, as somebody who didn't have a lot of Chase Brown, I was like, oh, okay, like I feel like maybe I was on the right side of this. You know, I kind of dodged a bullet here. And then I traded for Chase Brown in a couple spots, and the dude helped me win a title. So yeah, Chase Brown, like we got to be given some context here around this past week's game, right, against the Cardinals, because it's easy to look incredible against Arizona, who, by the way, gave up over a 20-yard catch to an offensive tackle this week. Did Arizona? It was
on their bingo card.
If you missed that, that's the state of the Arizona Cardinals right now. But like, to his credit, man, he's been awesome the last 2+ months of the year, and we'll talk about how to handle him, I guess, again this offseason. But I feel like maybe he's earned an extension here with Cincy.
Yeah, he's 25.8 years old, entering year 4. He's only going to make $1.1 million in terms of base salary. But if you look at what the market value is for a player entering year 4, he's set for an extension. We'll see if he gets that. It's funny because I had Chase Brown on a dynasty team, on a Superflex team, and I traded him before the season because I just made the bet of like, between year 3 and year 4, maybe they add someone else. Maybe that's what they do. So I actually traded him after the NFL draft when they didn't really add anybody other than Taj Brooks, a later round pick. And that pick, that looked great because my return ended up being Travion Henderson. And through the first month of the season, though, both of those guys dudded. And I was like, maybe I'm just wrong about both of these players. And now it looks like I think Travion's a great asset to have long term, but Chase Brown might have been the play that I needed to win this season, and I lost in the semis. So I was just thinking if I had Chase Brown on that team for the semis and the finals, I could have won. But 5 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks, all of them happened in the third quarter. So if you had him on your team, you're like, where's this going to the first half? The crazy thing is he just gets these chunk yardage gains, and we've described him this way before, but this film against Arizona, which isn't really a defense, he's Austin Eckler. Like, Austin Eckler at his best ended up being a really good goal line back towards the end of his career as well. It wasn't just the pass catching work. And he's seen 73% of the team's carries inside the 5. That's top 5 in the NFL. And you just get this floor every single week of 4, 5 catches. That is just really hard to replicate in fantasy football. It's like Achane and Chase Brown. Those are the dudes, other than the elites of like Bijan, CMC, and Gibbs, that feel like every single week, I know I'm going to get this production on an offense that is going to put their foot on the gas because their defense is so bad. So it's the perfect mix of what you want in fantasy. I do believe he gets an extension. So I do believe the value goes only up from here. So if you have him, he's a hold. I don't think I would encourage people to go after him just of where he's at, but I think he's in a great spot. I think he's probably around that RB 14-15 range for me in Dynasty.
Yeah, and honestly, I could see him getting pushed up even a little higher in rankings if he does get that extension, which obviously teams are going to talk favorably about their players, but you hear what Burrow says and the front office says and stuff, and like they all seem to be very in on Chase Brown. So, and to his credit, they've given him every reason to be. So in his college profile, if you recall, kind of going back 3-4 years now, like, one of the things that I think sometimes we miss in Dynasty with prospecting is just like, can this guy earn a legit workload in college? Because those guys that don't really do that at that level, like, it's hard to do that when you get to the pros. Like, when he was in college, he could legit handle full, 20, 21 touch type games. And so he did have that in his collegiate profile, even though there was some warts elsewhere. But just like that is in and of itself a skill when we look at running backs coming from college to NFL. So yeah, Chase Brown, it's been a workhorse for a year and a half now and super productive. So yeah, if he gets that extension, I'm with you. Definitely top 15 in my book. Man, what a Sunday Night Football game, dude.
Dude, it was so fun to watch. Not just for having Brock Purdy on a team, but just from a sense of like, no matter what, this drive is going to end in a score.
Dude, honestly, I feel like every player in the game, skill-wise, fantasy related, was productive. Caleb and Purdy were both great. CMC was awesome. Even Pearsall popped up for a nice yardage game. Jennings had the touchdown. Mr. Loveland.
There's only one that decided not to show up to the game.
Luther Burden was great. Swift had 2 touchdowns. Is it Monongai?
It was DJ Moore.
Oh, yeah, whatever. It's fine. He was sick, Kyle. He had the sniffles. Okay?
He was started against me, so I felt like a champ.
Man, but yeah, I just wanted to go back and not just watch that because it was unbelievably fun, but also like the Chicago rookies, and obviously I'm talking about here to some extent Kyle Mullingar, but really Luther Burden and Colston Loveland. Context, of course, is important, right? The Niners destroyed defensively by injuries. They've been really struggling over the back half of the year, ever since they lost some of their stars. But at the same time, Rome Odunze is out, and so then there's kind of this whole like conversation that we have every year with some young players where it's like, how much of that was them versus opportunity versus just like easy matchups and whatever. But I really believe they have hit on both these guys. Like, you know, I've been a Loveland guy since we did his prospect profile and stuff. The way that he is used, and when I'm watching this game, like, you know, there's some stuff where it's like production can be kind of fluky. Like, okay, that down the field touchdown that he had was a little bit off script and the blown coverage and whatever. To Caleb's credit, was a great play. Those guys, you get credit for doing that stuff. But at the same time, when you have like a huge game that's going to define seeding for the postseason, and your play caller and head coach is specifically designing first read type stuff for a rookie tight end and a rookie wide receiver, it tells you a lot, I think, about how they feel about these two players. And with Burden too, like, it was so fun to see him put in motion and then just get the first read on the play. Like the play is designed for him. And I remember when we talked about him this past offseason, the final year at Missouri was really tough to evaluate because of Brady Cook and a lot of gimmicky screen type stuff, close line of scrimmage. I've seen him this year, in my opinion, over the back half of the year, actually be able to do more down the field and run more of these kind of big boy routes that, quite frankly, when you look at his final stuff from Missouri, I didn't know really what he could do. And so it's super fun to see a great play caller, an up-and-coming quarterback, and these two rookies both hit. I feel like Chicago's hit a home run the last 2 years, basically, in their offseason moves. I'm so excited for what they can do with Ben Johnson in year two, but more importantly, like for the playoffs, I want to see these guys against legit competition go out and put up numbers. So we'll see what they do, but just want to give a hat tip to Loveland and Burden. I think they're both awesome pieces to have on your Dynasty team.
Did you see in the press conference right after the game? So obviously a tough loss for them, but you know, they were asking Ben Johnson about Luther Burden and just, you know, how he's grown, and you know, he looked like an alpha wide receiver in the game. Like they needed him. It looked like both the rookies were like, hey, in order for us to move forward in this game, we are just depending on you. Like Loveland had a couple of key spots, but he was asked about Burden. He said, hey, you know, when we drafted him, Jameson Williams texted me because they went to the same high school. And one of the things that I've realized is that Burden with the ball in his hands was something we knew he could do from Missouri, you know, these in space. But it's like these down the field routes that then turn in from like, here's like 8-9 yards to like, oh, this is a 20-yard play. This is a chunk gain. He put people on skates a lot of the game.
Yeah, he's super dangerous with the ball in his hands. And like, I think sometimes we also kind of miss the marriage that needs to happen between player and play caller and stuff.
That's
and like,
a great point.
Like with Ben Johnson, like we should feel more confident in these types of players. When they go to, you know, the Jets or like whatever, it's like, I don't know, man, like who's calling the plays here? What's happening? Like you're seeing it in Philly. Like they're not maximizing great wide receivers. They're just running hitches and out routes, and you need 10 yards, but let's only run an 8-yard route. Like they're just not putting these guys in position to succeed. Ben Johnson deserves so much credit for what's going on in Chicago. And, you know, I mentioned at the start of the season, I was like a little hesitant. I was like, I don't know, there seems to be a lot of hype. Like maybe it's more of like a stepping stone to 2026. I still feel that way, but I feel like way more solid that like they can make some noise in the postseason. So we'll see. It's a really fun team if you're a fan of the Bears right now.
Yeah, there's another gear that this offense can still hit.
For sure.
Which is wild to be able to say. I shared some statistics today about Loveland and contextually, like, here's what he's done as a rookie over his last 9 games. It's the 4th most fantasy points over the final 9 games of a season. Like, it's right above Gronk's rookie year. Like, it's historically really, really good. And then I did the same thing with Burden, because right now at 2.98 yards per route run, it's the best of any rookie wide receiver. Now, I have to set the minimum around 200 routes run, but some people lost their mind when they saw that statistic. And I was just like, oh, well, here's what he's done so far. And then Matt Harmon and I were kind of talking back and forth of like, man, should I ever share stats like that? Because at the end of the day, when you share it, people will go, look at this, he's better than Jamar Chase. It's like, no, he's really good in the, because he hasn't been a full-time player, since like the last month?
Right.
So
yeah. I did think it was pretty funny that Chris Collinsworth was referencing yards per route run on the broadcast. And Mike Tirico was like, explain that to me. Like, what? And of course, all of us fantasy nerds are like, dude, we do that too. It's so funny. But yeah, I mean, that is one of the most predictive stats for year 2 breakouts. And like, you can guarantee in redraft circles and in dynasty circles, like everybody's going to attach that stat. Not that they shouldn't or should have, just saying that they will, to Burden and say, look, here's what these guys have done as rookies. Here's the bucket he falls into. Therefore, we should expect XYZ in year 2. And to some extent, I will agree with that. But at the same time, too, you have to always provide context on everything stat related. And, Kyle, you may be shocked to understand this. It's hard to find context on Twitter sometimes on the internet with people. But I just thought that was so funny that he was referencing yards per route run. And Tirico was like, now explain this to me. And of course, all the fantasy nerds are like, we know what this is. So it was good.
It was tough because Mike and I were chatting about Burden.
Tirico?
Right before. Yes, me, Tirico, and Mike Wright. And all I was doing was just giving context. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. I'll share the stat. And the amount of people saying, oh, are you saying this means that about Luther Burden? It's like, no, this is just so far what we have to work with. And the context of Luther Burden versus Puka Nacua as a rookie or A.J. Brown as a rookie or Jamar Chase is very, very different. They're very different teams, very different types of players. Even Ladd McConkey, who's on that list, just a different type of dude. So the Bears are intriguing because they basically said, like, let's just get a ton of bullets in the chamber. With Burden, Loveland, DJ Moore is still going to be under contract for many years based on the contract unless he's traded. Rome Odunze, who hasn't played since, I don't know, is going to be a part of the conversation. And then we're still going to have to figure out the running back room next year. And, they bring Swift back, all that stuff. It's an intriguing team, but there is a lot of variability in the team. Like, I don't want to just say Burden to the moon just yet.
Sure. And I think in some ways too, like for real life NFL purposes, you kind of want that, right? Like,
yes,
they have so much freedom right now. Like they have this 2-year window right now where it's like, you should go all in, right? Caleb on a rookie deal, Loveland obviously on a rookie deal, Burden rookie deal. Like they have all these cheap pieces, especially on offense. Rome Odunze still on his rookie deal. DJ Moore is like the only real expensive piece, skill position wise. Obviously the offensive line, they put a ton of investments into that. But like, yeah, go just maximize your window because right now they're in it, in my opinion, for the Bears.
Their defense is wildly all over the place. Number 1 in turnovers, and yet like 30th in yards per play.
Yeah.
They're a very bend, don't break type of defense. Let's take a quick break, speaking of, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that this is the final day of 2025. If you use that calendar, I don't know what you use, Betz. If you're like a, Mayan calendar, if you're a Gregorian calendar person, I don't know.
More of like a iPhone calendar guy.
Okay, I respect that. Shout out to Hearth. That's what my family uses at home, our little Hearth calendar. But I was realizing that we're about to enter into a season with a lot of speculation of here's what this team is going to look like. Here's what these players are going to look like. And so for a lot of people, they're trying to figure out their benches. It's like, your studs. We're going to talk about trade targets during the offseason. But I think a lot of people are trying to sort through the trash and figure out, do I keep this player? Do I drop them? What speculative ads do I have? What do I wait until free agency? So we're going to talk about that today.
Stash or trash?
Stash or trash is the game that we're going to be playing today, Betz. We're going to go quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and maybe we'll get to tight ends. And it's going to be pretty quick. Okay, this is a quick hitting episode where you and I sort through players and just say, what could happen with this team? What could happen with some of these players? There's a lot of speculation. And to start at quarterback, the stat we've been using for years is that over the last decade, a third of the league has a different starting quarterback in week 1 than they did the year before. That statistic has held true for an entire decade. So there's a lot of teams that are searching for quarterback, or at least effective quarterbacks, and then a lot of teams that are thinking about taking somebody, the Raiders at 1, maybe the Browns, all these other teams. So at quarterback, there's not a lot of options at free agency. We just need to mention that at the top. It's like Daniel Jones, Aaron Rodgers, and then if you care about Russell Wilson or Zach Wilson.
Kyle, why? Don't do that to these people.
The
Come on.
Wilson family, got to give them a shout out.
The Wilsons. Yeah, it's a weak class overall if you're needing a new quarterback, is how I would set the stage for the offseason. Because we've seen a lot of the names that were thrown out for the rookie class in July and whatever. A lot of these guys are coming back to school. So the actual NFL draft class for rookies does not seem super deep. At the same time, you look at the free agent quarterbacks, and those also seem not ideal, right? When you think about, like you said, Rodgers and the Wilsons and Flacco and Tyrod Taylor, the only real highly, highly coveted name, I think, is going to be Daniel Jones. But quite frankly, because of his Achilles, I just think it muddies the water so much that I think the best marriage for him and the Colts is probably just to bring him back, because he already knows the playbook and all those things. It's hard to sign him if he's rehabbing, learning a new playbook, can't practice till July, all that sort of stuff. So it's a really interesting quarterback situation. And I think that opens up a wide array of what could happen in certain rooms and certain starters. Guys that come to mind for me that are really intriguing based off of a potential trade, or just the marriage is kind of over. Where does Tua go? Where does Kyler go? And then the one that I'm super, super intrigued by is Malik Willis. I feel like Malik Willis is going to get more money than any of us would have expected a year ago, and either brought in to compete for a starting job or just be given the starting job for some desperate franchise.
Malik Willis is a perfect example of a player in Dynasty. Remember, right before the NFL draft, it was, oh, I know what this guy can be for fantasy because he runs. And then we kind of ignored a lot of the stuff because he was the betting favorite, to go number 2 overall.
That's right.
That year to the Lions. And he just needed time to learn how to be an NFL quarterback, not a college quarterback from Liberty. And it's cool to see because you watch that game, I know that the Ravens were just running all over them, but you saw a competent quarterback that could step in. And yeah, he's probably going to end up being in that Mac Jones level where it's okay, if you need to be a starter for, an extended period of time, you can do it in the NFL. I don't think of him as a franchise quarterback. And I don't think you do either. You just think he's an intriguing name in Dynasty to kind of pay attention to.
I think more than intriguing, I'm really excited to have him on my bench this offseason.
He's your my guy.
He's my guy. Honestly, because when he's under center, he's going to produce big time fantasy points. We can poke holes in how he plays and all this sort of stuff and his background, but to where he's gotten, and it's also a good reminder too, situation and scheme and what you're around matters so much. We saw kind of things flame out in Tennessee, and I understand why they moved on from him. And credit to the Packers who brought him in on a super cheap acquisition. You put him around a good play caller and some good weapons and stuff like that, and it's oh, good things can happen if he learns the NFL and he's there and he will run. And so, yeah, if he goes to the Jets or something and flames out again, nobody would be really shocked by that. But at the same time, for whatever window of starts you get with him, I feel good about him producing fantasy points. So, especially in Superflex leagues, if you can somehow get him on your bench for cheap before the offseason kind of, excitement starts, or if you already have him, there's some guys, players that you have a quarterback that you sign because the season came to a close, you had injuries, you're I'll sign him for a start or two, and then you plan on dropping him. Do not drop Malik Willis is my advice.
Yeah, that's going to be our advice, is you don't cut any player we list this entire episode.
None of them.
We will play a little bit of stash or trash. Maybe just you can tell me some players in a second. But the situations we're looking at is Arizona. What are they doing with Kyler Murray? Atlanta. What do they plan on doing with Kirk Cousins? And if they're going to bring him back, pick up his option. Yeah, that's a whole different situation. Bryce Young in Carolina. It seems like they will pick up his 5th-year option of $26.5 million. Cleveland. Las Vegas, Miami is a big question mark. Minnesota shouldn't be a question mark, but I have to list it here. The Jets, I feel like they've been on this list forever. Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers, another situation. But the 2 names I want to bring up as potential starters in the NFL in 2026 are Mac Jones and Anthony Richardson. I think it's very possible that Richardson starts week 1 for the Colts, and Mac Jones is a starter somewhere. Miami was one we brought up a couple weeks ago.
You think Richardson would start just because of the Jones rehab?
Yeah, if they go that route, then they say Richardson will be our bridge, and it would be a good problem to have in reverse of what they had last year. Right. But I think that's the route they would go.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, Mac Jones is really intriguing. He's shown enough in the league that like he can be viewed as a starter. I don't think people view him as a potential Super Bowl winning quarterback or, whatever. Like you're not gonna, give away the farm to go get him. But like there are so many teams, and we talk about this and we joke about it too. In like week 10, 11, 12, as you start to get late in the season, it's like we really can't find any better quarterbacks than this. And like this is what we're putting on the field in the NFL. It gets so bad every year. Like Mac Jones is better than half the quarterbacks that started in week 18, So I do think he deserves and could be a starter. He's under contract though with San Francisco, isn't he?
Correct.
So
yes,
it would have to be a trade. Yeah, that's tough. We'll see.
Yeah, it's like a Jimmy Garoppolo situation.
Right.
When he was with the Patriots. All right, let me throw out a couple fun names at quarterback, and you tell me if any of these names interest you. So we're not saying to cut any of these guys, especially in a Superflex league, but tell me if they interest you. Jacoby Brissett, Jalen Milroe, Justin Fields, Jameis Winston, Joe Milton, Will Levis, who's still in the NFL, Zach Wilson, only 26 years old, and then, of course, Trey Lance.
My heart.
There's some dirty names in that list.
It is. Do these guys interest me? Yeah, these are nasty. Levis, no. Zach Wilson, no. Jameis, always interested. Will he get his chance? I don't really know. It seems like the NFL has kind of decided on him as far as being a backup. I do think Brissett is worth holding on to, and I think Justin Fields is worth holding on to see what happens with both the Jets and Arizona. I think a lot of people think they move on from Justin Fields in New York, and the contract is kind of set up to be that. So I'd hold him and just wait and see. And then with Jacoby, it's like the Kyler marriage seems over, and do they just punt it off for a year and let Jacoby play for a year? Like I could see that. So those are the two I have the most interest in for obvious reasons. Otherwise, I don't want to say cut Trey Lance because I would never. I personally would never.
Yeah, you can't.
But that's how I'm viewing it.
I have Joe Milton on a Superflex team that I've just been holding on to just because he's such a fun player to project. He's basically budget Anthony Richardson, and he's one of those players this offseason. Like if you need to create room, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's whatever. Jalen Milroe I would still hold on to because I love him and he's fun, but none of these guys are like, you're just hoping for a situation where somebody gets hurt and then you're kind of behind hoping. So we can't really give full advice on some of these guys other than if you have a deep bench, hold on to a lot of them. I do selfishly wish that Zach Wilson would have gotten a start in Miami this year. Just to see. I just want to see.
We've seen.
Maybe that he's grown up.
Sure.
Come on, man. You're rooting for Drew Lock all the time to get a start.
Yeah, because he's fun and he raps on the sidelines.
Well, Zach Wilson hasn't had a chance to rap on the sidelines. No one's giving him that opportunity.
Although, you know what happens? Leave the Jets, you become great. So who knows?
Well, Mike McDaniel isn't letting him be great.
But I understand that, right? Because they're like, hey, we drafted yours. Like, let's just see.
And by drafted, 7th round pick. It's like
they still turned the card in.
That's true. They had
nobody was watching, but they turned the card in.
All right, let's move to running back because it is a little bit more interesting at the running back position. The free agents, Breece Hall, J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Walker, Rico Dowdle, and then you go a little further, Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, Rashad White. Those are kind of the bigger names, and there's a few more. But I think Breece is the big piece at, only 24 years old. We don't think he's going to be in New York. And we could speculate all day of which team it's going to be, but he's definitely the biggest domino to fall in this class.
For sure. And, this past weekend quietly just had his first 1,000-yard season, which is crazy because we know how talented he is. And I think it gives context to, obviously there was injuries, so that's part of it, but context to kind of like what he's been working with in New York the last couple of years. So he was adamant at the deadline. He says he didn't want out, but like the tweets would say otherwise, and people kind of knew. So yeah, I think the Chiefs are like the most obvious talking point and would be the most fun because they do have to support Mahomes with a run game coming off the ACL. And they obviously tried to trade for him just a month or two ago when we were at the deadline. So that's the most fun one. But yeah, he's the domino that's going to fall. I think there's a really, really good chance we see a big spike in his dynasty value in March when we do have free agency, because he's the headline in the class, right? It's like Dobbins coming off foot surgery, Kem Walker's. I feel like fantasy players view Kem Walker more in a positive light than the Seahawks might.
Is it because he runs backwards every other play
and then tries to cut it outside? Rico is good, but like obviously it's kind of a late career breakout. Like how much value is there? Rachaad White is highly inefficient. I think Javonte probably goes back to Dallas. They've talked really positively about that. And then I think Travis Etienne might go back to the Jaguars, especially with how much they've had success with him in this offense over the last 5-6 weeks. It just makes sense. So I feel like Breece is the headline here, and he's going to be making a lot of money, I think, this offseason.
Yeah, I'm looking at running backs that are kind of around that top 10, top 12. Just basically, they're an RB1 in our minds in Dynasty. And Breece is right there in that category. And I'm looking at names like Bucky Irving, who it's been not great for the entire Bucs organization over the last 6 weeks. And you and I have been joking that for some reason, they just have it in, I don't know, their notebook, their play call sheet, that he is not allowed to get a carry inside the 5 because he has as many carries inside the 5 as you so far this year, Bucky Irving. So right now, is you there Bucky or Breece Hall in Dynasty? Because I feel like you just said it, like in March, things are going to flip where the value is going to go towards Breece Hall's side.
Yeah, that's tough. And obviously, I don't want to be so recency biased with like how much Bucky has struggled
There's
recently.
About a year difference in age.
Yeah, and like Bucky was awesome his rookie year, of course, right? I think Breece is probably the guy I would prefer. It's hard to say that without knowing landing spot, but I will say too, just on Bucky real quick, like he's the guy that I think when we take a step back and just kind of diagnose like what happened in the Bucs season, like they've had offensive line injuries all year in and out of the lineup, wide receivers in and out of the lineup. Like Bucky obviously has been hurt. There were some reports or like suggestions that like the lengthy absence was more some mental health stuff in addition to actual injury too. So like there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't want anybody to be super down on Bucky because of a kind of awkward and weird season. I still think he's a really good player. So I would love to have both these guys, but I think with the extension or the contract that Breece will get, I think I probably prefer him.
Yeah, and just moving down some interesting teams. We talked about Cincinnati. If Chase Brown gets an extension, it is worth noting that P. Ryan has another year under contract, and he's annoying because he does get carries inside the 5 sometime. With Dallas, we assume that it's going to be Javonte resigning, but the interesting name there are Malik Davis, who is a restricted free agent, which means he'll probably be back with the club. He's also way older than people realize. Like he's kind of bounced around their practice squad for years. He's 27 years old. I would not be making moves about Malik Davis, but if you have him on a roster, he's still worth the stash, along with Phil Maffa, who was their 7th round pick, and I guess Jaden Blue. I don't know if they even like him.
Doesn't seem like it. Seemed like he kind of like had his small chance there, and then they were in the running to make a postseason push, and he obviously wasn't reliable, so they didn't really even make him active. I think it would kind of make sense in week 18 to be like, let's give him a handful of touches and just see what he can do. So yeah, who knows on that? But I think like going into the season, of course, we all made fun of the Cowboys. We're like, what are they doing with Javonte Williams? And we all look like idiots now, and Miles Sanders. But like, if you can resign Javonte for a reasonable 2-year deal, 3-year deal, whatever it is, and then like have these cheap Jaden Blue, Phil Maffa, Malik Davis as your backups, and like not have to invest a ton of money into that room, seems wise to me, especially when you have these huge contracts, for Dak and CD and hopefully Pickens, and then of course Quinnen Williams, too. So yeah, it's interesting what they're doing in there in Dallas, and I think Javonte probably is back as the RB1.
I think the most interesting backfield for me in 2026 is going to be Kansas City, because the only running back that I'm seeing under contract for 2026 is 7th rounder Brashard Smith. That's it. So Kareem Hunt, 30 years old. I'm assuming they're over this whole, charade that they have. They're just like, oh, let's just get him out there and repeat. Pacheco's a free agent. Technically, Dameon Pierce is on the roster right now, but he's going to be out of the NFL. Keontae Ingram, doesn't matter. Like, is this a spot for Breece?
I think it's an awesome spot for Breece, and I feel like they need it. Like, it's time, to like get a real difference maker back there. Like I said, especially this year with Mahomes coming off multi-ligament ACL surgery. I thought it was so weird, man. Like, and we view stuff differently than teams do on the inside, but it's like you're out of the playoffs, you're starting your 3rd stringer, it's week 17 and now we're heading into week 18. Like, just give Brashard Smith a bunch of work and see. Like, instead of being loyal to Kareem Hunt when it doesn't matter at all. I get it when you're in the playoffs and you need 4 yards, but like, come on, Andy Reid, let your hair down a little bit here. See what you got in Brashard Smith. But low investment in all these players, and obviously a lot of them hitting free agency. I think Hunt probably done. Pacheco probably goes elsewhere. And I do think they finally invest like legit capital in a legit running back here.
The backfields that right now look like committees, things might clear up. Denver. So do they roll with RJ Harvey or do they figure out something with Dobbins? Arizona, technically James Conner's still under contract, and there is this, you've been really good to our franchise for all these years. I know that it didn't end the way you wanted to. There's also a chance where this team just cleans house. So Kyler, Jonathan Gannon, Drew Petzing, the whole crew, and we get to see Trey Benson. We thought we were going to get that when Conner went down, and then, of course, Benson went down too. So that's an interesting one. Tennessee, in 2026, technically Pollard and Spears are both under contract, but they could move on from Pollard and save about $7 million if they wanted to. So that's definitely a backfield. I mean, Tennessee over the last month is averaging over 25 points per game. So it's like an offense that is definitely like trending the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people too, like with the Cam Ward pick and everything at the start of the season, thought they might be able to lean on the run game, just kind of like ease the rookie into the NFL. And they had like a lot of investments in the offensive line. They weren't like legit elite athletes and elite players there, but they were like all pretty good. And I think a lot of offensive line analysts were like, oh, like this team could actually kind of surprise a little bit in the run game. And then, of course, the first 2 months we were like, oh man, this is not good. But now you're actually kind of seeing that come into form late in the year. So I could see them going any number of directions here with the backfield. Of course, it's hard to know without the head coach and play caller and stuff. But it's hard to say. I think Pollard has shown enough, but it's like, do they really value that him at his age versus saving the money? I can make the argument for both. And I feel like this team is not, a player or two away. Like they kind of need a lot of things. So I could see them putting those funds to good use.
Yeah. And obviously it'll be a new play caller, new coaching staff. There's no reason for them to have to stay there other than here's what you did over the last month of the season, which was really nice. All right. A couple of quick names here, and then I'm going to throw out some randos. You can tell me if I need to stash or trash them. Devin Neal has a chance to be the lead back with the Saints. They also could add somebody else. Also, Kendre Miller could come back from the grave.
Oh my gosh, man. Kendre and Marshawn Lloyd. These two.
Marshawn Lloyd never really worked out for my Dynasty team the way that I wanted to. And it was so funny. I don't know if you're this way about players. I legitimately went back and forth with Jeremy, with our Dynasty team last year about Marshawn Lloyd for like 2 days. Because we were like, should we include him in a deal? Jeremy's a Packers fan. We didn't know about Josh Jacobs yet. And it's like, we spent so many days talking about players that have no consequence.
It's so true, man, too. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't cut these guys, but like also when we get to this part of the offseason coming up and you're like talk yourself in and out of cutting a player like 6 times, you're like, he was all right that one game and he's the RB3 on this team, anything could happen. And so you just go back and forth the whole time, but it's like, we should probably just move on.
That sounds like an article that I will probably end up writing where the title will be something like a list of every single player in the NFL. And it's like literally just why you should cut them and why you shouldn't. And it's just all these fringe players. And you could make the case for either side.
That's right.
I feel like that'll be helpful for readers.
Totally.
For people that read these days.
Imagine doing anything else in March. Like, come on. That's what I would want to read.
All right, a couple more players here. Dylan Sampson, very interesting as a potential flex. We know with Judkins, there's an injury situation, so that's interesting. Woody Marks with the Texans is a 4th-round pick. It's basically re-rolling what we did with Dameon Pierce of like, okay, as a 4th-round running back with the Texans, will it matter? So we'll talk about that in the offseason. All right, here's some randos. You tell me if you're interested at all, not interested, or if like, hey, you can trash them. Rachaad White, Jonathan Brooks, remember him for the Panthers?
Sure do.
The Dolphins' backup running backs, Jalen Wright or Ollie Gordon, Isaiah Davis of the Jets, not related Ray Davis of the Bills, close cousins, I guess.
Okay.
And then any San Francisco running back not named Christian McCaffrey.
What's Brian Robinson's contract?
I believe that he will be a free agent, but let me talk to my people. And by my people, I'm looking it up.
Okay. I mean, you always want San Francisco RB2 on your dynasty squad, just in the event McCaffrey misses time. We've just seen it year over year whenever that situation plays out. So I like the depth pieces to just have in case. On the Davises, it's tough, man. Like, I think a lot of people were calling for a little bit more Ray Davis this year, of just like, hey, he was pretty good as a rookie on a per touch basis and all these things. And then they signed James Cook to a huge deal and give him true workhorse production and usage. And it's been Ty Johnson working in there as RB2. I think you want to wait and see what the offseason looks like for the Bills running backs before you move on. Isaiah Davis, I think you can cut. And then who are the other ones? Rashad White. I'd hold on to him to see what happens with a new deal or anything like that in free agency. Jonathan Brooks, the odds are just so against him turning into anything that it depends for me on like your bench size and size of your league and stuff. If you have super deep benches, like 30, 35 man rosters in the offseason, I play in a couple leagues like that. Like in those formats, I could hold on to him. Otherwise, probably not.
All right. One, Brian Robinson is a free agent. So that's part of it. Two, if your team needs like a motivational speaker, I feel like Jonathan Brooks would be really, really good to add to the squad. Just like bring him out in front of the group and be like, hey, here's what I've been through. Just a little talk about perseverance.
Okay.
I feel like that would be fine. And then three, the most intriguing name to me on this list is Isaiah Davis.
Really?
I think he's actually a good player.
And there were some people that were decent fans of him coming out.
He's a jackrabbit in college. He was.
Yeah, I don't know.
What if they end up doing kind of like what the Steelers did, where it's like they have two running backs, like Warren and Gainwell, and Isaiah Davis ends up having a role, maybe not as effective, but like 1A, 1B kind of situation.
Could see it. Does he have one more year on his rookie deal?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you can't cut that guy.
Dude, never cut him. Isaiah Davis is the dynasty steal of the offseason.
I do have him on in two places.
Yeah, man. Check him out, man. Him and Jonathan Brooks, if you need it. I will say, if we didn't mention rookie running backs, the rookie review for that position is coming up over the next month. So we will talk about all the rookie running backs, including the ones you really want to hear about. Caleb Johnson, what do you do with him? Jarquez Hunter, what do you do for him? Because those guys didn't really exist in 2025.
We'll see. Caleb Johnson. We brought it up like 2 weeks ago, maybe. Day 2 picks that don't really do much in their first year. Kind of surprised in year 2. Blake Corum was like that, right? Like he's done nothing in his rookie year, and now he's like a legit part of the offense. So
yes, yeah, no, he's a perfect example of that. However, the data set does not include Arthur Smith,
who always optimizes his players' strengths.
Always. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll talk about wide receivers. All right, moving on to the wide receivers, and who is going to be at the top of the list? It's George Pickens, and he's going to get a giant bag. If he's not franchised, but he's going to be a Cowboy. Come on.
I think so.
I love having George Pickens on a dynasty roster. It is a very, very, very good feeling because there were so many times where I could have sold out. I really thought about it. Just like, I need to move on from this, kind of like the Steelers did. And they were wrong. So it's nice to prove the Steelers wrong. Other free agents, not a great class beyond George Pickens. Deebo Samuel, Alec Pierce, who we're going to talk about. Juwan Jennings, 28 years old, but he's made some good incentive money over the last couple of weeks, catching touchdowns. Rashid Shaheed, Wan'Dale Robinson, good for him. His agent, this is what his agent's going to do. And I feel like in another life or in my future, I could be an agent for a player and be like, here are all the stats to prove to you why my player, my client, is deserving of this money. Because Wan'Dale Robinson, this dude's seen 140 plus targets each of the last 2 years. Do you not care? This guy's worth billions of dollars.
I mean, Wan'Dale's valuable to an NFL offense.
He's just always been in a crappy offense.
Yeah, that's true. But like, we talk about earning targets as a skill. The guy earns targets.
Where would be a fun spot for him to be a slot wide receiver who does what he's supposed to do.
Here's what I'm doing if I'm his agent. I'm pulling up the list of league leaders in receiving yards, and I'm putting his name and showing you that he has more receiving yards than A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle.
Got to.
I mean, you name it. He's right now, he is currently 11th in the league with 1 week to go in total receiving yards. That is absurd. So I think he's a good player. Obviously, like, you don't want him to be like the focus of your offense.
You want him to be your 3 and to play the slot role the way that he's meant to. He's just never had to do that. And with the injuries, he's just getting all this volume. So he's interesting. Romeo Doubs is interesting to see if the Packers, how that situation shakes out. Doubs and Wicks are free agents. Hollywood Brown is not interesting to me, but someone will throw money at him.
I don't know, man. I feel like the NFL is... Do you remember when he had his first go-around with KC, which was... This is his second one-year contract, I believe?
Yes.
When he signed the first one, do you recall when that happened after the year in Arizona? He was like the last of like the notable names in free agency to sign. Like, it was like a couple weeks after like free agency opened. There was like no buzz on him. And so, I don't know, man. Like, these front offices, when they make their decisions, they often look at like, what have you done recently? Not like, what did you do 4 years ago or when you were with the Ravens? He's done nothing in the NFL for a couple years now. So.
You know that I have been very much against Hollywood for the last 3 or 4 years. And the situation, when he was in Arizona, Jason and I had lots of long conversations about this. I said, I just don't know if his skill set works in 2025 NFL in terms of just beating zone coverage. But I want to give you a counter argument here because there's somebody out there that's hearing what you're saying and they're calling you out as that's pure poppycock, man. Diami Brown got $10 million this past year.
Which is why Alec Pierce is going to get way more money than any of us could even like have imagined.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for Alec Pierce. That's the thing though too, right? Is like wide receiver contracts are so ridiculous nowadays. Like Tutu Atwell got $10 million this past offseason.
Good for him.
Good for him. I mean, yeah, I'm happy for these players, obviously, but like, I don't think Marquise Brown will do anything with that.
No.
Even though he might get a 1-year, $10 million deal or whatever it is, it's not going to change how I feel about him in Dynasty.
All right, so Alec Pierce is the fun name because this year it's kind of proven that there's a payday coming. If you look at the Colts and you look at their wide receiver room, Michael Pittman has 1 more year under contract. It's a $29 million cap hit. It's actually pretty expensive for where he's at, where he's kind of slowly deteriorating, which is really, really sad because, you know, we're big fans of Michael Pittman.
We built this city.
Thank you.
And then you look at the rest of the roster, and Josh Downs has 1 more year. Behind him, man, it's pretty... Ashton Doolin's actually been a really fun special teams player. I don't know if you've like seen that behind the scenes. And then it's barren, man. Their wide receiver room feels like sometimes they have too many names. And then in a year or two, we're going to be like, who is around here other than Tyler Warren? So do you think they re-sign him?
Do you know their cap situation offhand?
I need to look it up. They are like behind in a couple different areas. I remember from this past year, but I'll look it up right now.
Well, I also think too, like considering kind of what they gave up to go get Sauce Gardner, they don't really have like high-end assets to take a like alpha wide receiver if they view one in this class or the next one coming up. So I think there's a chance they probably resign him if they have the funds to do it.
Yeah, right now they're 12th in cap space. Now, when I share these cap numbers, they're all made up because they'll all change. Everybody will get restructured. It's not going to matter. But Alec Pierce is probably going to get a 3 to 4 year deal.
Yeah. He's going to make a lot of money this offseason.
Yeah, let's talk about some other rooms that are interesting. I think Kansas City's going to be interesting. It's going to be probably Rice, Worthy, and Jalen Royals, who they took in the 4th round, but he's basically a Rashee Rice clone, but just like a diet version. And we're knocking on the door of Rice wanting a contract extension. Okay, he's got 1 more year under contract. And then all these Tyquan Thornton, Juju Smiths, all these things that are kind of ancillary weapons they've used are not under contract. They will probably bring one of them back, like Thornton, because he played his role. That's kind of what they did with Justin Watson for years. It's like, all right, you understand our offense. You'll get the scheme. But long term, I still feel like this team is like, doesn't have the outside options that make defenses scared.
Yeah, I think they maybe had hoped they were going to get that with Worthy, And it's obviously hasn't worked out that way where it's like you can line up on the perimeter and we just need, it's 3rd and 8. We need a guy to go win one-on-one and not like a manufactured thing that Rice can do, which again, to his credit for fantasy, for everything, it works. But like that outside kind of guy that they just don't have that, right? So I think they probably need to prioritize that, with kind of the room that they have right now where it's kind of a mix of like different archetypes, but a lot of possession-y type, gimmicky, manufactured type stuff. I think they need that on the outside this year.
I think you could still stash Royals for now. I mean, he just didn't get on the field enough to really have an opportunity, so you can't really say that much. Buffalo's really interesting, and I feel like we've had the same conversation with them because beyond Khalil Shakir, are you confident in any other wide receiver to have on a dynasty roster right now?
Confident?
Or at least, who would you pick?
I mean, I think you just have to follow the money with Palmer and just maybe he's an every down player next year. But like, I don't know, man. Like, it's the issues that they have at wide receiver, I feel like are very, very likely to get exposed at some point in the playoffs. And I'm really hoping Brandon Beane says, okay, enough is enough. We have to get our guy. And they tried with Keon Coleman. It just hasn't worked. Seems like those two could use a fresh start. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but when Brandon Cooks is like an every down player for you in week 17, and Gabe Davis is a meaningful contributor in certain parts of your year, at some point enough is enough, and you have to like pony up and actually get Josh Allen some guys. So yeah, we'll see. But I guess Josh Palmer is the guy who I would stash, and obviously Shakir's on your roster.
They pay a lot of money for Curtis Samuel to do a lot of nothing.
He's always hurt, man.
Houston's interesting because we know Nico's still the alpha there, but Christian Kirk will still be owed a lot of money, a lot of voided money, but he'll be a free agent. And then we're just kind of trying to figure out the young guys. It's like all the Iowa State guys. Hutchinson only has one more year, but Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, kind of saw that in that game against the Chargers. They had those big touchdowns. Technically, Tank Dell still has one more year under contract, and technically, I still have him on a couple of dynasty rosters just sitting on my IR.
Me too.
As it's a courtesy thing because I love him, and I had really good moments in the past. But I guess, do you think there's any buy window for Higgins or Noel, or is it like, hey, people are onto this?
I think in any serious / competitive dynasty leagues, people that drafted these guys in the rookie draft this year,
am I right?
Casuals have no idea, Kyle. But if you drafted Noel and Jaden Higgins, you obviously understood the depth chart is what it is, and the most likely outcome here is that these guys are kind of the future, the next guys in for, especially for Jalen Noel with Christian Kirk there. So it depends on your league. If you can go get these guys, I certainly would. I think the most likely outcome is they do clear the deck for these two, second-year players next year to step in Higgins and Noel.
Jacksonville, a lot of question marks of what their wide receiver room looks like. Parker Washington has one more year under contract, and I feel like he's been the guy in the slot that Liam Cohen talked about in the offseason. Remember all those conversations about like he watched the film of Brian Thomas Jr. and he was like, I had no idea he was this good in the slot. I remember that soundbite very, very well, and using that as like, oh man, they're going to get super creative. Brian Thomas Jr. Who knows? Like they obviously signed Jacoby Myers to a contract extension. We're waiting on Hunter to come back. A lot of moving parts. I have Parker Washington in a couple places, and if somebody thinks he's something and wants to add in a deal, that's fine. I'm just not making any moves right now on this wide receiver room.
It's tough, man. You obviously have to factor in something with Travis Hunter here. They have talked all offseason and the draft and stuff about him being a two-way player, and who knows? And he was starting to finally like have real usage offensively before he had the injury in practice. So who knows how it would have gone down the stretch? But you think about like the investment in him, they feel like they have to get him on the field in some ways, right? So with what's going on right now with Jacoby and PTJ and then Hunter, I think Parker Washington most likely is kind of the odd man out here, but he has shown, I think, enough in the NFL to be a productive wide receiver 3 slot player that if I can stash him, I would prefer to. I just think it might be like better than we think. Like even this past weekend, he again dominated.
He's
for
good
the Jaguars.
in the slot.
He is, and so I would hold him if I could.
It's one of those things we've talked about a bunch, and this is something I learned in Dynasty a long time ago. One of the traits that does translate from college to the pros is if you have punt return or kick return skills, it just helps players, especially those in the slot, that can get open and create separation just because they have those skills of cutting that maybe some of the other wide receivers are a little bit more stiff. And you've seen that with Washington multiple times this year. You've seen that from Chimere DK. It translates to the NFL. So he's an interesting player. Couple quick names, couple fun names here before we finish with tight ends. One, did you know that Devon Vele is older than Brandon Ayuk?
Really?
Devon Vele is an interesting player with the Saints. He's 28 years old. And Brandon Ayuk is a very interesting player that hopefully you're just waiting to see whatever team comes a-calling and wants Brandon Ayuk to be a part of their team because they think he's a good clubhouse guy. He's 27.8 years old.
Dude, he had an amazing season 2 years ago, and it has just gone miserably since then.
All right, next question here is, would you rather have Xavier Legette or Jalen Coker as the Panthers wide receiver 2?
I know Legette obviously is still under contract. Where's Coker at with his deal?
Coker was an undrafted free agent, so he's still under contract as well, I believe.
That's tough. I think the team kind of like wants Legette to be something, but everything about what you've seen the last couple of years with these players on the field says Coker is probably going to be more productive.
Coker is what's called an exclusive rights free agent, which means that the team will have him back if they want him. I think I'll lean Coker there. And then 2 old guys I just got to mention. Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen. Who comes back next year?
I think Tyreek is pretty much done with the injury. Like, he might play some snaps and stuff next year, but we're not going to get anything even close to what he was or has been even this year. So it's pretty much over for Tyreek in terms of dynasty. Keenan might have one more year.
You watch
as
your
a
mouth.
guy you could plug into your flex and get 8 points like 3 times next year.
Dude, I have so many statistics that are, they're just going to go off when Keenan passes this threshold for third down receptions, first downs, receptions for a career. He's still got stuff on he's going to be top 10 in almost every category.
Dude, Keenan's awesome, but again, we've talked about this.
Hey,
you don't want the guys you love to play 1 year too long, and I think we're like on the edge there.
We are getting on the edge, and it will be very weird because the Bears year was a blip, but he had a good little run at part of that. But we're going to remember as a Charger. Now, if he ends up being like a Titan for like half a year, and then he retires, I can't handle that, man.
I mean, we had the Julio Titan year. They're not the same level of player, obviously, but Tyler Lockett went to Tennessee and fell off.
It's not really the place. Van Jefferson, he went to Tennessee, fell off.
Superstar goes there, fell off. You don't want Keenan in Tennessee.
Okay, good. I'll talk to him about it in the offseason. We didn't mention the rookie wide receivers because we will be talking about them in the coming weeks. The Matthew Goldens of the world, Jack Besh, all of those players that you're like, hey, what do we do with those guys? Don't cut them. Please do not cut rookie wide receivers. We'll have a chance to kind of assess where they're at and where they're at moving forward. Let's quickly go through tight ends because there's one name, very top of the list, that's going to get a bag of money. And by golly, he slow played it. He just said, you know what? I'm going to wait to the very end and I'm going to get a bag of money because my name is Kyle Pitts Sr.
Always a second contract, Kyle. Always Kyle. I really do think that he could go somewhere or even resign and just be a solid piece in the offense. Now, it's a thin needle to thread, right? Like, you need him to fit a certain role. And that was the issue that we all got stuck in for those 2 years where it was like, A, he was battling injury, but also B, like, he wasn't really a tight end and he couldn't be a full-time player because of that. And you're not building your offense around him. So it's like he needs to kind of fit the right second option, third option on a team. But in that role, I think can still be productive. We've been saying this for years, right? He's still only, you put in his age, he's still only 25 years old. We have Juwan Johnson and these other guys out here at 29, 30, 31, like still producing. So I really do think Kyle Pitts can be a second contract guy. We'll see where he goes.
I'm happy for him, really, really happy for the guy. And the way
do you think he's back in Atlanta?
No. I I think for my own mental health, I don't need him to be in Atlanta. But I also understand that if he goes somewhere and he's just freaking awesome forever, that will also make me feel bad. There's no winning situation in this relationship.
Not for you.
It's a really complicated thing to have this right here. But think about how much value you recouped in the last 2 months having Kyle Pitts on your roster. You went from having, I guess he's my tight end 2 on my roster, to holy crap, I now have a guy that people would think is around a top 5 to 6 dynasty tight end again.
Would you put him that high? I don't think I would.
I think from sentiment and him going, let's say he signs with the Chiefs. Kelsey retires.
Goodness gracious.
Think about the value. It's more of the perceived value and hype that surrounds him. Then, do I think he's actually a top 5 dynasty tight end? No.
Especially not with this rookie class. It's been awesome.
Yep. And then the other interesting names, we talked about Gunnar Helm a couple weeks ago, Chigakonkwo, who is still a boss, man, with the ball in his hands.
That play this past weekend was awesome.
Dude, it was amazing. It's the best. Kansas City, we'll have to figure out what Kelsey wants to do. Noah Gray's the stash there. Philadelphia is interesting with Dallas Goedert, who's in a contract year. Philly's weird, man. You'll be able to discuss them this offseason, whatever weird shenanigans you guys have after you go out in the first round.
They will. Yeah, Goddard's interesting because he had a lot of money kind of due to him, and the team, I don't think they wanted to move on, but financially it kind of made sense to move on, and then he agreed to a restructure to come back for cheap. So there was already kind of this dance this past offseason. I think we'll have it again. But yeah, we'll see. He's, I think, a solid player. I don't think he's irreplaceable in the offense, so it wouldn't surprise me. And Howie kind of does this a lot where it's he'll move on a year early rather than a year or two late. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas Goedert's elsewhere, but we'll see. They don't really have a guy waiting to fill that role.
Tight end's one of my favorite positions to have these ambiguous names where there's guys like Jake Ferguson a couple years ago, didn't really do much his rookie year,
right? Then
emerged as this option. You've seen it this year with Colby Parkinson. It's there's a couple of guys there. Okay, he has a stretch that were super, super usable. So there's guys like Ben Sinnott, who I know we've talked about a lot on this podcast. We'll talk about him. Juwan Johnson is a name that we've loved for a long time on this podcast, and you've kind of seen this opportunity this year to be showcased as essentially a wide receiver too. With Kamara out, they don't have these little cheap dump-off stuff. It's been a lot of Johnson. He'll be back this next year. Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill will probably be gone. So Juwan Johnson's probably my favorite name of just fringe tight end 1, but doesn't get the recognition he deserves. All the rookie guys, we're going to be talking about them. Fannin, Warren, Colston, Loveland, Gadsden, who finally got back in the end zone. And then I think Terrance Ferguson's definitely going to be a fun offseason name.
I feel like he is the guy I'm most excited to add relative to cost. Because you're not going to get Warren or Loveland or maybe even Fannin from people without having to pay up.
You could not pry those from my dead cold hands.
I agree on that 100%. Which means Ferguson's probably the most relative to cost, most desirable guy to trade for. Just given the second round draft capital this past year, we know that he had really good athletic testing, and it's I'm not shocked he hasn't done a lot given that Puka is there and Devontae Adams, and then they do this kind of 3-man rotation at tight end. So if he can emerge as the guy next year, especially with Higbee in a contract year dealing with injuries, that is really intriguing to me.
What if I told you ahead of time that beyond Kyle Pitts, the tight end that will get the biggest annual contract, I'll put it that way, will be Cade Otton this year?
Probably. I'm just looking at the names and I'm yeah, probably. You're probably right. Maybe David Njoku.
Yeah, Njoku. If some team really likes Likely, it obviously this year didn't really help. And then beyond that, it's not great. So I'm proud of Cade Otton. Just tough guy on the field, does what you need.
We talked about your routes run league. He's got to be up there.
Oh, dude. Cade Otton for years was my stash. In the league, that was just me by myself playing in my routes run league. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Betz, sign us off for the last time in 2025.
Yes, Happy New Year, everybody. On to 2026. The offseason is here. Rookies, trades, all that good stuff that we love in Dynasty. We'll catch you then. Enjoy the new year. We'll see you next year.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your Dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.